Coldplay concert is going viral. It gets me really nervous, but not because of the music, but this couple horrified after they appeared in a kiss cam during the band's Boston show.
Kristen Cabot is out, officially resigning after being caught on that now infamous kiss cam with her boss, CEO Andy Byron.
Have you ever watched a single moment turn into a storm that changes everything? Friendships, careers, even entire lives? It can happen in seconds. One glance, one joke, one camera shot, and suddenly nothing is the same again. That's exactly what happened on a warm summer night in 2025, inside a stadium full of cheering Coldplay fans. Thousands were there for the music, but millions, yes, millions, would later talk about something else entirely. Something that wasn't part of the show, yet stole the spotlight completely. A camera swept over the crowd, searching for smiling faces. It landed on a pair no one expected to see together. Kristen Kat, a well-known name in the business world, and Andy Byron, the CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies.
Andy Byron has tendered his resignation to the Peter Joy, continues to serve as interim CEO.
What happened next lasted only a few seconds. The crowd laughed. Chris Martin made a teasing joke. The clip went online, and from that moment, life would never return to normal for them, or for anyone connected to them. This is not just a story about a kiss cam. It's about how a tiny moment can explode into something far bigger than the people in it could imagine. Let's uncover the story by digging deep into the facts. The moment that couldn't be undone. It began with a stadium camera. On July 16th, 2025, Coldplay was deep into their Music of the Spheres, set at Gillette Stadium in Boston, when the kiss cam swept across a crowd of 65,000 fans. It landed on a man and a woman sitting unusually close, their faces betraying a strange mix of familiarity and panic. The man was Andy Byron, CEO of Astronomer, a billion-dollar tech company based in New York. The woman beside him was Kristen Kat, Astronomer's chief people officer. They were not strangers, not colleagues caught in casual conversation. They were tangled in a moment neither could control. Both were married, neither to each other. Coldplay's frontman Chris Martin, seeing their awkward stillness, laughed into the mic.
Chris Martin quite knows how to classify the music, the band, or himself, as we found out.
And you decided to be a rock star when?
Either they're having an affair or they're just very shy. It was meant as a joke. It became the opening line of a scandal that would topple reputations and burn through two industries. The stadium roared, but the awkward shuffle that followed was louder in its own way. Byron ducked his head and looked away. Kristen spun in her seat as if pretending to search for someone else. The crowd cheered, and the moment passed in the arena, but outside those walls, it had only just begun. The kiss cam was supposed to be fleeting entertainment, a filler between songs. Instead, it became evidence in the court of public opinion. Within hours, the clip was stripped from the live feed, uploaded to social media, and set loose to ricochet around the internet. By morning, it was on every platform, looping endlessly, drawing millions into a story that had only been hinted at in whispers before that night. The joke shifted almost instantly from speculation to certainty. Here were two married executives, caught in the act. The teasing smile on Chris Martin's face became the backdrop for 1,000 captions. And then came the footage no one expected. TMZ released a grainy video from another angle, showing the pair swaying arm in arm to Coldplay's Yellow, their lips meeting mid-song. If the kiss cam had been circumstantial, this was confirmation. The numbers surged into the tens of millions within days. Hashtags trended, memes multiplied. What had been a fleeting image was now a pop culture moment, one that would destroy careers and marriages before the month was out. For Kristen, the fallout was more than public embarrassment. She was married to Andrew Kat, the billionaire CEO of Privateer Rum. His was a name embedded in Boston's old money lineage, a family heritage once described as so elite they speak only to God. Privateer rum was not just a profitable distillery. It was an heirloom, a brand built on centuries-old Cabot family tradition. Kristen had been part of that orbit since 2020, serving on the company's advisory board while building her own career in tech. She moved easily through the same high-society events as Andrew, dressed for galas, fundraisers, and yacht club dinners. Together, they projected stability, success, and influence. The couple had recently purchased a $2.2 million home in Rye, New Hampshire, a postcard-perfect property with manicured gardens and the kind of kitchen meant for magazine spreads. Instagram told the story of a happy family, smiling children, holiday celebrations, travels that suggested effortless affluence. But people close to Andrew would later say the marriage had been shifting for months. He was traveling more, speaking less. His tone clipped when they were together. Some claimed he had begun to move assets, adjusting trust structures, reviewing prenups. There were even whispers of a private investigator. Whether those whispers were fact or fiction hardly mattered after the Coldplay show. The moment the kiss cam went live, any doubt was erased. The problem was no longer private. It was public, memed, and replayed to a global audience. Byron's wife, Meghan Carrion, reacted in her own silent but definitive way. No statements, no interviews, no social media battles. Within hours of the clip going viral, she removed Byron's last name from her profiles and began scrubbing years of family photos, smiling vacations, proud graduation days, candid moments from a life she clearly no longer wanted to display. Within days, her accounts were gone entirely. Her digital disappearance matched the physical silence she maintained. In the absence of words, her actions were unmistakable. The corporate reaction was swift. Astronomers' board placed both Byron and Kristen on administrative leave, citing the need for accountability at every executive tier. For a company valued at over $1 billion, the stakes were high. Within days, Byron resigned. His exit came without public ceremony, though there were private whispers about severance negotiations and legal agreements. Kristen's separation from the company followed soon after, and her name faded from Astronomer's leadership materials. The board appointed co-founder Pete DeJoy as interim CEO, and in a PR gambit that bordered on absurd, enlisted Gwyneth Paltrow as a temporary spokesperson in an attempt to redirect attention back to their product. But nothing could stop the Coldplay clip from overshadowing every press release. The cleanest cut. While the scandal devoured headlines in the US, Andrew Kat was in Japan on business. He made no statements, no comments, no cryptic posts. The press could not provoke a reaction, because there was none, at least not publicly. He returned to Boston the Saturday after the clip went viral. What followed was not confrontation, but execution. Kristen's belongings were removed from their home the same day. Access to joint bank accounts and credit cards was cut off without warning. Her name vanished from the Privateer Rum Advisory Board roster overnight. Staff who had once worked for both were reassigned solely to Andrew. It was described by one insider as the cleanest, coldest cutoff I've ever seen. In the world of billionaires, silence is not weakness. It is strategy. High society felt the shift immediately. In Palm Beach and Boston, Kristen's absence was abrupt and complete. Invitations to galas evaporated. Social contacts, who had once greeted her warmly, now kept their distance. The yacht club saw her no more. Her LinkedIn was deleted, her Instagram and other accounts vanished. She was not merely separated from Andrew, she was erased from the shared world they had built. She left for Connecticut, staying with her sister in a quiet suburb. Neighbors reported seeing her tending a garden in sweatpants, the diamond ring that once flashed in photographs now absent. Reports claimed the couple's children remained with Andrew. Those who tried to reach her found their calls unanswered, their messages ignored or blocked. It was exile not by geography, but by access. Andrew's precision became its own kind of narrative. This was no chaotic divorce splashed across tabloids with he said, she said accusations. It was a removal, measured, deliberate, and total. To friends who had watched the marriage from the outside, the reasoning was obvious. Betrayal was bad enough. Public humiliation, replayed endlessly by strangers, was intolerable. Being betrayed is one thing, one acquaintance told the Daily Beast. Being memed by millions, that's another level. Palm Beach had seen affairs, separations, and scandals before. But this was different. There was no public fight, no emotional spectacle. The silence itself became the headline. Andrew's life moved on, as if the Coldplay incident had been a footnote. He played golf. He appeared at events. He smiled for cameras. Meanwhile, Kristen, once unable to walk down Worth Avenue without greeting half the block, became invisible. Even before the Coldplay show, there had been signs. Andrew's reduced presence at events, his increasing travel, his private meetings with lawyers, each was a fragment that, in hindsight, pointed toward an ending. Yet no one could have predicted the final trigger would be a stadium camera and a passing joke from Chris Martin. The image of Byron and Kristen on that giant screen, caught between the desire to vanish and the impossibility of escape, became the defining shot of the scandal. By the end of that week, the damage was irreversible. Kristen had lost her position at astronomer, her seat on the privateer rum board, and her place in the rarefied social circles that had once been her playground. Byron's career at astronomer was finished, and his marriage appeared beyond repair. The video lived on, endlessly recycled, a permanent reminder of the moment that set everything in motion. And at the center stood Andrew Kat, untouched by the public fallout, his company intact, his silence unbroken. The kiss cam was the spark, but the fire was lit in the quiet, surgical precision with which he closed the door on the life they had shared, the life that disappeared. By the last week of July 2025, Kristen Kat was no longer part of the worlds she had lived in for years. She had been someone with real influence, respected in astronomers' tech community and present in the polished, high society circle around privateer rum. But almost overnight, she was gone from both. It did not happen slowly. Andrew Kat, her husband, moved quickly. He didn't make speeches or post public statements. Instead, he quietly removed her from everything they shared. Her name disappeared from the Privateer Rum Advisory Board. Their joint memberships, social clubs, yacht clubs, country clubs, were changed to his name alone. She was no longer invited to charity galas, society dinners, or weekend events. And in a place like Palm Beach, that kind of quiet removal meant one thing: she was no longer welcome. Their home in Rye, New Hampshire, a $2.2 million property, was now Andrew's alone. Kristen never returned there. The children stayed with him, which only fueled the whispers that their marriage had already been struggling long before the Coldplay concert. People close to them said the kiss cam moment hadn't caused the marriage to fail. It had only revealed what was already broken. At Astronomer, the hit was just as fast. Losing both CEO Andy Byron and Chief People Officer Kristen in the same week was more than a leadership problem. It was a public image disaster. Pete DeJoy, the co-founder, stepped in as interim CEO, but the real problem was that the scandal was everywhere. The internet had turned the kiss cam into a never-ending joke, and every time Astronomer tried to move forward, the past showed up in the comments. Even when the company tried a light public relations stunt, bringing in Gwyneth Paltrow for a campaign, it barely made a dent. The viral story was simply too big. People were not talking about Astronomer's products or business plans. They were talking about Kristen and Andy on that screen in Gillette Stadium. Kristen lost more than her astronomer role. She lost her place in the rum business too. And with Andrew cutting all professional and personal ties, there was no backup plan. Her career was simply gone. Andy Byron's fall was less public. He was not tied to Palm Beach society the way Kristen was, but his marriage also ended quietly, without a fight in the public eye. Kristen left Palm Beach and went to Connecticut to stay with her sister. She avoided public spaces and social events. Friends who had once seen her at every important dinner now didn't hear from her at all. They called it vaporization, like she had been erased from the map. A moment that would not die. The internet refused to let the story fade. The kiss cam clip had been seen more than 90 million times. Chris Martin's teasing line, "Either they're having an affair or they're just very shy," was repeated endlessly. It became a meme, a punchline, and an easy way to get likes online. For Kristen, it meant there was no safe space online. Even if she stayed away from social media, the clip could appear anywhere, on a friend's phone, in a random news feed, or as part of another viral trend. She could not control when it would show up, and she could not erase it. Andrew, on the other hand, seemed untouched by it. He continued to attend business events and private dinners. He shook hands, posed for photos, and poured private ear rum for guests, as if nothing had happened. His silence spoke louder than any public statement could. Some people who knew him claimed that he had been planning the separation for months before the Coldplay concert. He had already been making changes, financial adjustments, legal preparations, and shifts in their social life. The viral moment, they said, had not forced him to act. It had simply given him the perfect, undeniable reason to close the marriage for good. Months later, Kristen was still gone from the public view. She had not given interviews. She had not posted online. She had not tried to explain her side of the story. Her name was absent from society pages, and Astronomer had erased her from their public materials. Astronomer, as a company, continued to operate. New leaders came in, projects went forward, and the business stayed afloat. But in the public's mind, the scandal never really went away. It remained attached to the company's name, like a permanent stain that no rebrand could wash out. In Palm Beach, the story was retold like a lesson, a warning about how quickly a person's status could collapse. It was not just a fall from grace, it was a complete removal from the social map. The Coldplay